This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome to DevOps Training. This is Shadab Akhtar. I'm a software consultant and corporate trainer. In this session, I want to continue Ansible Tower. In the last session, we have discussed about Ansible UI, user interface or web-based environment. And I already used my server IP address, and then I give username as an admin and password whatever I set for inventory. If you want to access your Ansible Tower via the UI or web base, you have to provide your local host as well as your server IP address or virtual machine IP address where you are going to install your Ansible Tower. In the last session, we were facing issue. I'm not able to download Ansible Tower. So I researched on this root cause, this issue. I found in Red Hat updated multiple things. One of things they updated how do I activate an Ansible Tower subscriptions. So they mentioned in their documentation license key are not currently available for download and access Red Hat access.redhat.com. Instead, please reach out to Ansible license at redhat.com to request the license key. License key file are then imported into Ansible Tower UI to validate the subscriptions. So what I did, I mailed to Red Hat, but I could not found so far the keys. Let me check this time because in night time I could not get. So I discussed with um, Ansible Red Hat team. So I said that I'm new to Ansible Tower. I'm trying to install Ansible Tower on AWS EC2 Linux virtual machine. Everything looked good, but to access the UI, it needs a license key. Kindly request to provide a license key. So they replied me that you have to provide your account number. So I mentioned my account number here. This is my Red Hat account number. So if I will go to again, because they will provide me the keys, this is not available in official Red Hat sites. They change the policy. We have to request to the Red Hat, they will provide keys for the trial version. And after that we can use. So what I will do, I will wait for the keys. Once they will provide, we will continue Ansible Tower. The rest of the topic related to Ansible Tower I want to complete, means theory related part I want to complete. And after that I will discuss the rest of the topics. Once they will provide me key, I will complete this hands-on and practicals. So let me go to rest of the topics related to Ansible Tower. I'm just going back to my personal notes this time. And these PPTs I will provide you in a same drive. Ritesh, actually I discussed, I found, I researched on that issue. So I found previously what we can do directly, we can go to the official site, we can download uh, license key, and after that we can upload that key and we can continue in Ansible Tower. But I found they changed the policy.
Yeah, I got it. But I'm just curious to know why they have removed the automation and coming to manual work.
Uh, this is
Maybe
related to the
security.
security, but
Right.
security related things. Because if the keys is available in a official site, maybe it may be breach or hack or something.
Yeah, right.
They hacker or attacker maybe change something. So it is highly risk because it is keys related stuffs. That's
Yeah,
why,
right.
as per my understanding.
Yeah, looks like the same issue.
Yeah. So we discussed about Ansible Tower. After installation and configuration, we can go to configure and running management. So in the last session, we discussed a couple of things. So we discussed about access control with user and role-based access control. And we discussed about users and teams. Let's understand again. So I'm just going ahead here. And theory part I want to complete here. Then in next session, we'll continue with hands-on and practicals. So in this module, I want to discuss about create static inventories, machine credentials, projects, and job templates. Launch job, use the API, application programming interface, and control access with role-based access control. So controlling access with users and role-based control, I want to discuss here. See, these all are the key points related to users and terms. So we already discussed about these things in the last session. So we were on organization. Okay, organization is a logical collection of teams, projects, and inventories. All users must belong to an organization. Organization allow you to configure a collection of users and teams to work with only those Ansible Tower resources that you want to them to use. As a part of Red Hat Ansible Tower installation, a default organization is created. So you can proceed with default organization. An organization role. Newly created user inherit specific roles from their organization based on their user type. You can assign additional role to a user after creation to grant permissions to view, use, or change other Ansible Tower objects. An organization is itself one of these objects. There are four roles that users can assign on an organization: organizational admin, auditor, member, read. Then teams. Teams make managing on object more efficient than managing them for each user separately. Rather than assigning the same roles to multiple users, an administrator can assign roles to the team representing a group of users. In Ansible Tower, user exists an object at an Ansible Tower wide level. User can assign roles in multiple organizations. A team, by contrast, belongs to exactly one organization. Teams roles. User can be assigned roles for a particular team. These roles control whether the user is considered part of that team, can administrator administ- administer it, or can view its membership. A user can be assigned one or more of the following team roles like admin, member, read. Creating a static inventory. Preparing Red Hat Ansible Tower to managing hosts. So previously what we did, if you remember, in our control server and remote server. So we already complete this hands-on and practicals. So in a control server, you require Ansible, and after that, you have to go to host inventory file. In a host inventory file, you can define about your remote servers. So remote server 1 and remote server 2. So in our case, we completed all hands-on and practical related to configuration management tool Ansible with the help of CLI, command line interface. But in case of Red Hat Ansible Tower, to managing host, you can work with UI, user interface, or web-based. As you can see showing here, a preparing Red Hat Ansible Tower to managing host. An inventory is a collection of hosts as for our previous environment or infrastructure. An inventory is a collection of hosts and groups of hosts which are managed by Ansible, right? So in our case, our Ansible exists inside etc directory, which is one of Linux directory, comes under file system, and etc is configuration directory. And once you are going to install Ansible, you will find Ansible in this directory. So in this directory, you will find Ansible, and here you will find host inventory file. So we already discussed about this host inventory file. So same here, an inventory is a collection of hosts like remote server 1, remote server 2, or host you can say, or remote server you can say, and a group of hosts which are managed by Ansible. Before you can run a playbook is a YAML scripting. With Ansible Tower, you have to configure it within a inventory. You can also set variables. You can set also variables for those hosts which affect playbook execution. So we already discussed about variables in Ansible. So you can define variables. Like in our case, I write down only a copy. I already discussed about a copy tasks playbook. In a copy task playbook, what I did, I defined a variables. In these variables, I keep a message, and this message I send to from my control server to remote servers. So same here, you can also set a variables for those hosts which affect playbook executions. More than one inventory can be configured. Different inventories can be used for different purposes. Creating a static inventory in Ansible Tower. The simplest kind of inventory to set up a static inventory that you manually write. Two ways to set up a static inventory. Manage it from Ansible Tower web-based user interface. This is the second way, use an existing inventory file stored in version control system. This presentation will illustrate the first option. For example, for more information, you can visit to this URL, https://docs.ansible.com, Ansible Tower, latest HTML administration, SCM, INV import.html. Now, once you successfully log in into your UI or Ansible Tower web-based, you will find this kind of UI. So log into Ansible Tower. The admin user will work for this example. Click on inventories. If you'll focus, there is an inventories options. Previously, we worked inventories on a CLI, command line interface. This time we are going for UI, user interface. In the inventories windows, click the plus button, and then enter the name for inventory and its organization. If you'll focus, showing organization name as a default and name dev environment, and then description. So you can create a new inventory with the help of UI, user interface, adding adding a host to an inventory. In the Ansible Tower GUI graphical user interface, click the inventories menus, right? Then click on the name of the inventory, whatever you created. Click the host button, then click on plus, and this display the create a new host tooltip. In the host name field, enter the host name or IP address. If you remember, in our case, in our host inventory file, what we did. So, for example, this is host inventory file in Ansible CLI based, command line interface based. So, what we did, I did not keep directly our host name. I give group name. So I created a web server groups, or you can give whatever name as per your need, as per your requirement. In our case, in our Ansible host inventory file, I already give a web servers group name, and I provide a username in our case like remote, like right remote, and then at the rate private IP address or report server. So this was our pattern x dot x dot x. So this was our pattern. In a Ansible directory, you will find host inventory file, and in host inventory file, in our case, I created a group for remote servers, or you can say hosts, and I keep host details or remote server detail, like a remote at the rate private IP address of remote server. In most of the company, in a startup company or enterprise level company, they communicate with the help of private IP addresses. And you can list multiple remote servers or multiple your hosts. As you can see showing here a host name. In this case, they provide a host name win.example.com, and here is Ansible user DevOps. The variables text box, you can set values for variables that apply only to this host, and then click on save button. So it's showing here Ansible users, this is a variable, and define the name DevOps. In our case, what we did, I defined a variables, and I message in a double quotes, and then I execute my playbooks. So this message I sent already from my control server to remote servers. Okay, organizing hosts into groups. We already worked on groups in our Ansible. So you can go to the host, you can create your groups, and you can keep your host detail or your remote server detail. Same kind of stuff we can do in Ansible Tower with the help of UI. So group allow you to organize hosts into a set that can be managed together. Hosts may be in multiple groups at the same time. For example, you have a host inventory file, and you want to keep multiple groups. Multiple groups means you are going for web servers. These all for your web servers. Web servers, you are going to keep one group name web server. Second group name you want to create for databases. For example, you are going to create for database. So multiple group, as you can see, hosts may be in multiple groups at the same time. What exactly mean of this? It means you can keep in host inventory file your two groups at a time or more than two groups at a time. It depends on the need. So web server, you can define a list of your web servers, and you can define here list of your database servers. All hosts that are in a particular data center, all hosts that have a particular purpose, like a dev, test, production, host can be grouped. Group can be nested. Nested, within a group, you can define more things. The Europe group might include a Paris DC data center group and the London DC group. In a Europe group, you can keep, Paris data center group and London data center group. This allows you to run playbooks on particular groups. This allows you to set a variables to specific values for all hosts in a group. Creating a group. In Ansible Tower GUI graphical user interface, click to inventories menus and click on the inventory to edit and click the groups button, then click on plus button. This will open a create a new group tooltip. In the name field, as you can see here, showing development. Enter the name of group. So this time development is a group name. Define any values for variables. So if you will focus variables detail, it is showing into format, YAML, yet another markup language, second JSON, JavaScript object notation. And you can see look like the same playbook start with 3 hyphen and variables defined here a web root as well as web user. So it is look like same playbook, but this time with UI. Click on save your information. So group will be created. Adding a new host to the group. So in Ansible Tower GUI graphical user interface, click on inventories menus, click on the inventory to edit and click groups button, then click on the group to edit. Click the host button, then click on plus button. This will be open add a host tooltip. Select a new host. In the host name field, enter the host name. Host name means it may be, web1 dot example.com, or you can give IP address. We used in our playbooks as an IP address, private IP address. We did not use a host name. Of the managed host to create. Define any values for variables that affect only the host, overriding any group variables, and click on save. Inventories role. Admin. The inventory admin roles grant user full permissions over an inventory. These permissions include deletion and modifications of inventory. In addition, this role also grant permission associated with inventory roles like a use, ad hoc, and update. We already discussed about ad hoc commands. Use means the use inventory roles grant users to ability to use an inventory in a job template resources. This control which inventory is used to launch job using job templates playbook. Ad hoc. The inventory ad hoc roles grant user the ability to use inventory to execute ad hoc commands. Ad hoc command is a fast and quick, but we cannot save for the future use. Most of the people preferred playbooks scripting and update. The inventory update roles grant user to ability to update a dynamic inventory from its external data source. Then read. The inventory read roles grant user the ability to view the content of an inventory. Configuring inventory variables. When you manage a static inventory in Ansible Tower Web UI, you may define inventory variables directly in the inventory objects. We already use in our playbooks variables. So first one, variable set in inventory details affect all hosts in inventory. Variables set in a group's detail are equivalent of group vars variables. Variables set in host detail are the equivalent of host vars. Now, configuring variables for an inventory. If you will show focus showing inventories, mail servers, name is a mail servers, and organization is showing here default. So default organization will create by the Ansible Tower. So showing multiple options, details, permissions, group, host, source, and completed jobs. You can describe about your details, and then you can go for YAML, and JSON remains optional always. Most of the people prefer YAML. So start 3 hyphen and defines your variables. See here showing now inventories, mail servers, all groups, and southeast, and detail is showing. And now ntp hyphen se.example.com. This is one of syntax for variable declaration. Now this time it is showing inventories, mail servers, hosts. This is the host name bastion1.example.com and showing on, and then host name showing here bastion1.example.com. Creating machine credentials. Creating machine credentials to securely provide the Ansible user and Ansible password setting for managing hosts. Create a machine credentials. User of Ansible Tower can be use these credentials but cannot retrieve the value of the password directly. The machine credential password is stored in encrypted from in Ansible Tower. We discuss about encrypted kind of things in Ansible board, right? So creating machine credentials. In Ansible Tower Web UI, click on Credentials, then click to plus button, create a new credentials, name for name, enter the name for your machine credentials, select your organization, often default, and for credential type, select a machine, then click on select, and for username, enter the name for the Windows user you use to authenticate. For password, enter the password for that Windows user and click on save. When you set up your Ansible Playbooks job template, it can be used this credential. It is a simpler if you can use the same user name and password for a large number of hosts. For example, machine credential example. Go to the credentials tab and edit credentials, showing a name, mail server credentials. Credential type is a machine and username is a playbook and showing SSH private key encrypted. Credentials role. Credential roles. So admin roles. The credential admin role grant user full permissions on a credentials. These permission include deletion or modification of the credentials as well as the ability to use a credential in a job template. Use. The credential use the role grant user the ability to use a credential in a job template. Then read. The credential read role grant user the ability to view the details of a credentials. This still does not allow them to decrypt the secret which belong to that credentials through the web interface. Now, configuring a project. This is for overview preparing a project. Have an inventory and machine credential for your managed host. Create a source control credential if needed for your Git repository. Create a project for your Git repository that specify the Git repository URL and uses the source control credentials. Gets the latest version or specify a branch or tag or commit to Git. Creating a source code credentials. Log into the web-based UI Ansible Tower. Click Credential to enter the credential management interface. In the credential pane, click plus button to create a new credentials. In the create credentials pane, enter the required information for the new credentials. Enter a unique name for the credentials. Specify your organization if needed or default. In the credentials type, list select source control and under type details, enter the authentication information needed for your Git repository and then save. Here example, name testing repo and description credentials for the testing repository. Organization is selected default and credential type for source control and showing username testing, password, and you can proceed to the save. Creating a project. In Ansible Tower, the project resource represents a repository that is available in a version control system and has at least one playbook and its associated resources such as files and templates. The design of Ansible Tower assumes that most Ansible projects are in a version control system. So Git is a version control system, right? Git is a version control system. Multiple developer can use Git individually and they can collaborate into cloud repository like a GitHub or company server, etc. It can automatically retrieve updated materials for a project from several commonly used version control systems. Ansible Tower supports the ability to download and automatically get updates of project materials from SCM, source code management, using the Git. Subversion. Subversion. So before Git, there was Subversion. Um, Before Git, people used the Subversion, but there was some drawbacks in a Subversion. That's why people preferred Git or Mercurial. Creating a project for a Git repository. Log into the base UI for Ansible Tower. Select project, go to the list projects, click plus button to create a new project. Enter a unique name for the project. To assign the project to specify organization, click the magnifying glass icon for the organization field and then select your preferred organization. From the SCM type, source code management type list, select a Git item. Enter the location of your Git repository in a SCM URL field. In SCM credential, select the name of the source code credential to use if any is needed. Finally, configure how the project get update from the version control. Available settings are clean, delete, update, update reversion, or launch. Now you can see the example. So creating a project for a Git repository, you can see example project and showing description, example description, organization selected a default, and SCM type is Git, source detail showing here a Git SCM URL, showing GitLab, gitlab.example.com, student playbooks.git. So this time used GitLab, and SCM credentials is the GitLab credentials, and showing updated reversion on launch. And after that you can click to save. Project SCM update options. First one is a clean. This SCM update options remove local modification to project materials on Ansible Tower before getting the latest reversion from the source code, source control repository. Delete on updates. This SCM option completely removes the local project repository on Ansible Tower before retrieving the latest version from the source code control repository. For large repositories, this operation takes longer than clean, update, or launch. This SCM optional this SCM options automatically update the project from the source code repository each time you use a project to launch a job. Ansible Tower track this update as a separate job. If this option is not selected, you must update the project manually. Now, project roles. So this is related to the project roles. Admin. The admin roles grant user full access to the projects. When granted this role on a project, a user can delete a project and modify its properties, permission included. In addition, this role also grant users to use update read roles. Use. The use role grant user the ability to use a project in a templates resource. This role also grant user the permission associated with the project role, read role, and then update. The update role grant user the ability to manually update or schedule an update of a project materials from SCM source, source code management source. This role also grant a user the permission associated with the project read role. Read. The role read role grant user the ability to view the details, permission, notification associated with the project. Creating a job templates and launching jobs. Creating a job templates. A job template is used to run playbooks. It combines the project containing the playbooks with an inventory, the machine credential for authentication to host, and parameters that controls how the playbook runs. Once the template is created, it can be reused to run playbooks again as often as needed. Job templates are only set up once but run whenever a playbook is updated. They can also be a run, ensure the expected host configuration, and confirm to define standards. The launch button or icon for a job template is used to run playbooks. Creating a job templates. Log into the web-based UI for Ansible Tower. Click templates to go to templates management interface. Click on plus button and then select a job template to create a new job template. Enter the name for the job template. Select a run as the job type. Click the magnify glass icon to inventory field and then select the inventory to use. In the credentials field, select the machine credential to use authenticate to manage host. Click the magnifying glass icon for the project field, then select the project containing the playbook that the job template will run. Select the playbook that the job will run from the playbook list. The list shows all the playbooks that exist in a project. Optionally, you can limit the host that will be used with the limit field and then click on save. Here is an example. If you focus showing here templates and then name, description, job type run, and inventory, project name, architectural repository. Playbook is a review.yml. Review.yml. You have to select and credentials for DevOps, and then you can proceed. You can go to debug, or you can run your playbooks. These all are related to the roles, templates roles. So these roles comes under role based, either for the users or for the project, for the templates, etc. Showing here an admin. The admin role provides a user to ability to delete a job template or edit its properties, including its associated permissions. This role also grants permission associated with the job template execute and read roles. Execute roles grant user permission to execute job using the job template. It also grants the user permission to schedule a job using a job template. This role also grant permission associated with the job template read role and then read. The read role grant user read-only access to view the properties of a job template. It also grant access to view other information related to the job template, such as the list of job execution using a job template, as well as associated permission and notifications. Now, launching jobs. The templates to access the list of templates. Locate the job template to run from the list of templates. Then click the rocket icon beneath the actions column to launch the job. If you have enabled prompt and launch option for any of the field, Ansible Tower will prompt you for input before executing the jobs after responding the launch to launch job. Okay, showing here see detail, right? And run add project, run architectural project, run test playbook projects. Now, evaluating job results. After launching a playbook, Ansible Tower will load the detail page for the running jobs. The details pane displayed detail of the job parameter, who can run uh, job, when it run, and so on. The right pane is contains the output of the job, just like Ansible playbooks. So we use this for check syntax by the CLI or to execute our playbooks. So command line tools, this can be used to review the effect of the job and troubleshoot it. Across the top of the right pane are some summary statistics, how many plays, tasks, codes were involved in a playbooks run, and how long it took to complete or has taken so far. It is still running. You can check the example here. Showing here a recap, it is look like almost same whatever we completed in our playbooks. Controlling Ansible Tower with the API, Application Programming Interface. Red Hat Ansible Tower REST APIs. So it is help to communicate in secure way. Red Hat Ansible Tower provide a representational state transfer, repre- representation state transfer API, Application Programming Interface. This provide a mechanism that allow control of Ansible Tower outside of the web UI. Custom scripts or external application can access the API using standard HTTP hypertext transfer protocol messages. The REST API is useful when integrating Ansible Tower with other programs. Any programming language, framework, system that support HTTP can use the API. This provides an easy way to automate repetitive tasks and integrate other enterprise IT systems with Red Hat Ansible Tower. Using REST API from the CLI command line interface, use the curl command to make the request from the command line. The output of the API request is in JSON, JavaScript object notation. Here is example. You can use curl-x flag get http tower.lab.example.com API-k. You will find information. This is description, AWX REST API current version, API version 2, available version, and version 1, 2, and authentication, auth 2 API. It will show the detail. Now, using the REST API from the browser, the REST The Red Hat Ansible Tower API is browsable. You can access the browsable API at https://tower.lab.example.com API. And then you can click to API version 2. Link on that page to browse information specific to version 2 of the API, Application Programming Interface. If you'll focus, showing REST API version 2, get API version 2, and here is a detail. HTTP 200 OK, allow get head options and content type application or JSON, and many more information. So this format is a JSON format, JavaScript object notation format. Click the icon next to the API endpoint name to get documentation on the access methods for that endpoint. The documentation also provide information on what data house those methods returns. Launching job using API. Launching a job template from the API is done in two ways. First, access it with get method to get information about any parameter or data that you need to launch the job. Here is example. Get curl-x flag and get --user admin Reddit, and you will find the detail. This is launching a job using the API. They access it with the post method to launch the job. This example is post. Okay. Next is launching a job using API from the Ansible playbook. You can launch a job template through Ansible Tower API, Application Programming Interface with Ansible playbook. Ansible Tower can even run the playbooks from the job templates and use it launch another job templates as one of its tasks. In the playbook, use a task with URI model to talk to the API, Application Programming Interface. Think of this as equivalent to the curl command in earlier example. You must specify the URL for the job template using ID named URL. You must authenticate to Ansible Tower as a user that had permission to launch job. The task must run on a managed host that can talk to Ansible Tower, but it does not need to run on the tower itself. Here is the example. Launching a job using API from an Ansible playbook. Showing here a three hyphen, which is identity for playbook. Name showing playbook name, tower API. Host showing local host. Become true, it means for sudo privileges, sudo access. Here is showing variables declaration. So showing admin, so tower user as an admin. And here is first point. To access the API, Ansible requires the login credentials for a user that is allowed to launch a job from a job templates. Second one, jobs, Tower job. The playbook also requires the URL of the actual API to which Ansible must connect. This example uses the name URL of the demo job templates. Notice how the spaces in a job template's name have been specified using, percentage 20 code. You can also use the UR len code, filter tower jobs, demo job templates, URN code, and then third one URI. URI. Ansible can access the Ansible Tower API from Ansible Tower server by using URI model. Troubleshooting Ansible Tower and reviewing logs. So, perform simple troubleshooting on Red Hat Ansible Tower installation. Obviously, this is a very typical task. If you are facing some issues, so you have to troubleshoot, you have to go to the root cause, and you have to resolve as soon as possible. And identify logs for Red Hat Ansible Tower services. Troubleshooting Red Hat Ansible Tower. In this presentation, we look at the Red Hat Ansible Tower services itself. This will focus on the components that make up Red Hat Ansible Tower, not a playbook debugging. Playbook debugging is different. When troubleshooting a playbooks, look at your job output first. Components of Red Hat Ansible Tower. There are four main components managed together. Nginx provide a web server for the UI and API, application programming interface. PostgreSQL, this is one of database. Internal relational database server. Super supervisor supervisor D. So processes control system that manage the application running jobs, etc. RabbitMQ server. If you remember, I said password for RabbitMQ. AMQP message broker supporting and signaling by application components. In addition, Memcached memory caching daemon is used a local caching service. Network ports and components communications. These service these services communicate with each other using a normal network protocols like Nginx. With port 80 and 443, which is a secure communication. Nginx 80 port. So default port you need to open and 443 port number. PostgreSQL 5432. This is a port number for the database, relational database. RabbitMQ server beams listen of 5672 TCP port transmission control protocol 15672 and 25672. These all are the port numbers. If you are running a multiple machines cluster Ansible Tower installation, these may need to be exposed to allow the different servers of your Ansible Tower cluster to talk to each other. This is this is why setting good password for PostgreSQL and RabbitMQ in your setup inventory is important. In the single machine integration database installation demonstrated here, you only need to expose 80 port. You need to open 80 port and 443 port, which is for HTTPS port. HTTPS, Secure Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Okay, rest of the thing we'll discuss in the next session, Ritesh. It is enough from my side for today.
And Shadab, I have one question